East Asia. The world is pinning its hopes on the revitalization of this region. Now the countries of East Asia are looking to the future, aiming to go beyond country and race and coexist in harmony.
This program is made possible by the Agency for Cultural Affairs of Japan.
The East Asia Kyosei Forum, held in Tokyo, brought together experts from across the region. The goal was to identify principles by which East Asian countries may coexist in harmony. Disaster and culture in East Asia was the theme for this symposium. So what does the Japanese word Kyosei actually mean? Mr. Tamotsu Aoki, a former Commissioner for Cultural Affairs, was the forum's general chairman. In his opening speech, he explained the meaning of Kyosei and gave a definition of East Asia.
Let me explain the importance of the word Kyosei. It's the concept of people from different backgrounds living together harmoniously in a particular area or place, working together for progress and coexisting in peace and prosperity. For this reason, we've chosen Kyosei as our keyword. I believe that people must wonder and question what countries make up the region of East Asia. There are many ways of dividing the different regions, and these can change with the times. How we've defined East Asia here is the region including Japan, China, and Korea, plus the 10 countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, otherwise known as ASEAN.
Both economically and politically, the eyes of the world are now on East Asia. The countries shown here make up the region, the main focus of this forum. Today's 6 panelists, representing Korea, Cambodia, Myanmar, Japan, the Philippines, and Indonesia, are respected cultural figures from across the region. The people of East Asia have long accepted that nature provides a wealth of benefits, but at the same time can unleash devastating destruction. Today, the panelists talk about how the people of East Asia experience and overcome disasters and coexist with the forces of nature. The moderator, Professor Norio Akasaka, is director of Fukushima Museum and a member of the Great East Japan Earthquake Reconstruction Design Council.
2011 will be a year the people of Japan are unlikely to ever forget, with the unprecedented earthquake and subsequent tsunami of March 11th. Not to mention the accident triggered by these disasters at the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear plant. This combination of natural disaster and man-made calamity threw us into a situation of which we've had no previous experience and left us feeling lost and bewildered. I believe these disasters have made us consider life and death at a deeper level than ever before. I truly believe that. Today we will discuss the theme of disaster in culture. Since the beginning of the 21st century, East Asia has met with a succession of horrifying disasters. I hope we can discuss what the people of East Asia have experienced, how they have overcome disasters, and passed their experiences down to future generations.
The recent major disasters in China and Japan shocked Korea greatly. We feel a sense of danger too.
Yoo In-chon is Special Cultural Advisor for the President of the Republic of Korea and former CEO for the Seoul Foundation for Arts and Culture.
Most of the architectural cultural heritage in Korea is made from wood. Therefore, it can be easily destroyed by natural disasters, such as fires and floods, and is also susceptible to aging. If we look at the causes of damage on cultural assets in the past 10 years, surprisingly, fires account for the highest percentage. In particular, a fire in 2008 destroyed the first of Korea's listed national treasures, the Namdaemun Gate. The devastating incident was caused by an elderly man who was venting his personal dissatisfaction towards society. The Namdaemun Gate was burnt to the ground. Korea then designated the date of the fire, February 10th, as the Day of Disaster Prevention for Cultural Heritage. By merely attaching legal responsibility to one individual, regrettable incidents such as this cannot be solved. I believe disasters encourage us to discuss the relationships between nature, society, and heritage.
The topic of my paper is nature, ritual, and the equilibrium of the environment.
Professor Ramon Pagayon Santos is a composer and musicologist. He serves as Professor Emeritus at the University of the Philippines.
When Mount Pinatubo erupted, it was such magnitude that the ash covered some 2,000 square kilometers, with the weight of these ashes causing roofs to collapse and killing some 800 inhabitants, even though most of these inhabitants had been evacuated. However, a campaign was launched to restore town after town, with outsiders adopting the sponsoring places to bring in much food, clothing, and other immediate needs. The people themselves who had been directly affected organized themselves into brigades that tried to reconstruct infrastructure and rehabilitated whatever they could have. But most important element that the people clung to was their faith, and that the disaster was brought about as a test of their belief in the Almighty. Today, 20 years after this disaster, Mount Pinatubo is a beautiful aquamarine lakes resort. Another recent disaster is the Typhoon Ondoy, which inundated most of Metro Manila and its environs. A total of 341 millimeter amount of rainfall was dumped in Quezon City in 6 hours following the landfall of Typhoon Ondoy in central and southern Luzon. There was so much devastation, not only to crops but also to properties. People accepted the calamity again as an act of God and went on their daily life in spite of the inconvenience. The people didn't lose their faith and in fact resigned their faith to the Almighty. In one barangay or barrio, they even made songs about the disaster with the following lyrics to be sung during the eve of All Saints' Day. Thank you very much.
The title of my presentation is Intangible Heritage of Cambodia, Voices of the Deceased.
Dr. Samon Sam is a Cambodian ethnomusicologist. He's a leading force in conserving the traditional music of Cambodia.
Cambodia has not been heavily struck by natural disaster, but what happened in Cambodia was the result of human act, and we lose the tangible and intangible cultural heritages and human lives in the process, and thus leaving us with deep scars and desolate emotion. Under the genocidal control of the Khmer Rouge, there were approximately 2 million lives were lost, including those of the artists. And under the extremely radical and utopian policy, many performing art forms that we have in Cambodia of over 24 were oppressed, and only a few forms that were kept for the interest of utilization as means of the political propaganda and communist ideology at that time. Now, as we are moving forward, the process of healing, forgiving, and building Cambodian culture and the nation is very important. And one way for us as a Buddhist country about the cause and effect and also the smooth journey after death to the afterworld, a better world, is to respond to the need and the cry, the atrocity that people received during the Khmer Rouge control of 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days. And one of the things that we do is to teach our young to pass on the cultural knowledge and to preserve our culture and to have humanity within individual as we move on.
My topic, which I'm going to deal, is to give the particular attention on the disasters in culture in Myanmar, as Myanmar has been hit by the cyclone Nargis very seriously in 2008, and in the remote parts we have many. But how the cultural management and perceptions behind those disasters and culture discourse are to be discussed here.
Nanda Phum is Director General at the Historical Research Department of Myanmar's Ministry of Culture.
Here, I would like to call your attention on the 3 catastrophes which all of the Myanmar believe, that is famine, war, and epidemic diseases, which we all pray for to be free from paying homage to the Buddha. Next is the 5 enemies or dangers believed by every Myanmar Buddhist. We believe that floods, conflagrations, tyrants, thieves and robbers, bad sons and daughters who are unworthy for as heirs are believed as one of the major disasters in our life. Because this was regarding to our belief, we all accept these natural conditions with our faith and believed. And these can be only by coming up with the paying homage to the 5 benefactors, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, parents, and the teachers and parents, respectively. So to be free from those catastrophes is always in our mindset. So whenever we have to face the natural disasters, though we cannot stand physically, because in our situation, we cannot stand physically, but we can stand morally with the reflections of the teachings of Buddha and our perception towards such dangers that might fall during our poor faith. This is how we can make those resilience to any kind of natural disasters.
Novelist Nobuko Takagi is experienced in the promotion of literary exchange within Asia as director of the Soaked in Asia project.
I think the perception of natural disaster varies from country to country within Asia. However, there is a pronounced distinction when we compare Asian disasters with those in the US and Europe. Although there have been disasters of extreme proportions in the US and Europe recently, such as hurricanes, whirlwinds, hailstorms, and other such severe events. However, how should I put it? Nothing has been on the scale of the disasters we've experienced in Asia, where the ground heaves, where fires emanate from beneath the ground, and where the very earth we stand upon is shaken. In the case of most disasters in the West, it's as if an enemy is attacking from the outside, falling from the sky. I think these types of disaster are more common in the West. But the question remains, should major disasters be considered purely negative? Of course, they are far from positive, but I feel there are perhaps 2 points that we should bear in mind as we move ahead. The first is, maybe we should perceive these disasters as opportunities towards regeneration through the rebuilding of existing systems. The other point is that we've begun to forget the fundamental information that exists within our own animal instincts. Disasters give us the opportunity to once again put our 5 senses that have become numbed in the modern world to practical use. I believe we should interpret such unfortunate events as opportunities to change systems in the pursuit of regeneration and recover the use of our 5 physical senses.
My presentation will be looking at the performing arts and of the performing arts that we can learn when we watch a performance.
Professor Iwayan Dibya is a scholar of Balinese performing arts and perhaps Bali's most celebrated classical performance artist.
Performing arts is a culture form with multi-layered messages. Although presenting artistic enjoyments or stimulating aesthetic experience may be its primary goals, performing arts provides more than just pleasure and enjoyment. In Bali, Indonesia, it is strongly believed that performing arts, especially that utilize sacred objects or that involve trends like topeng sidakarya and barong dance, is the most important forms for conveying messages or signals of dangers from human, community, and natural disaster. Topeng Sunda Pesunda is a mass dance drama depicting a story about human disaster, a potential beginning for community and natural disaster. After successfully obtaining a powerful magic weapon that can destroy the 3 worlds, through a long years of meditation, the 2 brothers of Demon King become arrogant and lost self-control. After they were seduced by a heavenly named Nilotama, both Sunda and Upasunda decides to have her. They fight and they use their powerful kingdom to kill each other. At last, their own weapons kill both of them. In Balinese perspective, this story is a reminder of all human beings in this world to always maintain harmonious relations with the inhabitants of unseen world above and below us, and to not allowing ego, desire, and lust driving our life. The fail of doing so is a bad sign for human tragedy, which can lead to a serious community and devastating natural disaster. Thank you very much.
The impression I got from listening to you all is that the people of Asia have a profound respect for those we cannot see. When I say that, I refer to those who have passed away, maybe even gods, Buddhas, and spirits. I feel that we attach much importance to the world of the unseen. Can we take a look at a video here? This is the traditional Mitobe deer dance performed in the Minami Sanrikucho area of Miyagi Prefecture. There are 8 performers dancing here, dressed in deer costumes. This dance has its origins in the honoring of deer. I visited the village of Mitobe myself in May. I was profoundly touched by a story that I heard there. Mitobe was devastated by the force of the tsunami, and its residents took refuge at an evacuation center. Many people lost their lives, and most of the houses were swept away. The video you've just seen is a traditional performing art of Mitobe, the deer dance. The costumes used in this dance were also engulfed in the tsunami. A search for the costumes was made, and from the mountains of rubble, deer heads, costumes, and drums were retrieved. The performers gathered together again to perform in front of the disaster victims, and when they danced at the evacuation center for the first time, the villagers were moved to tears, finally being able to forgive themselves for surviving the disaster. This gave them a sense of closure. I believe that this sentiment, this idea, is perhaps typically Asian. It is a mode of thought that all Asian people can readily accept and understand.
The traditional performance art forms of East Asia have survived for centuries, giving people encouragement, comfort, and the will to live in the face of adversity.
Today we have heard from our 6 panelists about cultural diversity in East Asia. There is a wide diversity in religion, language, and political form. Accordingly, attitudes towards natural disasters are equally diverse. Even so, it is clear from the points raised that there are similarities too. For example, in the case of natural disasters, it appears that somehow Asian people regard them as a consequence of human arrogance, that disasters strike at times when man has violated or caused harm to nature. Professor Santos?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think most calamities are a result of the imbalance made by man on nature and the abuses that man has perpetrated on his surroundings. Usually, human greed is what has been causing disasters to occur in our environment. The denudation of forests, for example, have gone unabated due to illegal logging, and time and again, this has brought about floods and other calamities to lowland peoples. These are, of course, a more direct consequence of the natural imbalance of cutting trees without replacing them that will exact on the land. A respect for the natural environment is continually being lost, and we are beginning to forget that this natural environment is what nurtures life in the universe. Such respect is lost in the modern way of life and can only be retrieved in cultural practices that are born out of the beliefs in the natural environment as a source of both spiritual and material well-being of peoples. Respect for nature is what we need now. And when we look back at the indigenous communities, for example, we have to study their lifestyle again because their lifestyle has been close to nature. And nature is the source of all art.
Professor Sam?
The coexistence is that as we are all living under the same sky with different geographical area and all that, we are experiencing the natural calamities and all of that all over the world. And in order to move forward, again, we have to live together in peace and harmony. And then the good thing also as a human being, when there are calamities such as earthquake, tsunami, tornado, or floods and all that, we come together and help each other to overcome with this and move into the future. Thank you.
Ms. Fum?
For the ASEAN experience, we have now humanitarian assistance centers, or call it AHA Center. ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance Center is going to be established soon. So for the East Asia, we have to think about by centering Japan's technical know-how and assistance, would like to expect this kind of a humanitarian assistance center, which we can give more early warning systems and other trainings for trainers for how to control those things. And another is what the professor has already mentioned about cultural properties and natural properties. These are very endangering in this 21st century. So we have to think about all our natural beauties and those cultural properties to be digitized or something which we can be recorded. Because, for example, like if the place, the venue has been hit by the disaster, if we couldn't keep its genuine and all the natural and its cultural properties in record, we will lost everything.
I'd like to show you some images. In Japan, we organized a cultural property rescue program, and these pictures show how we are protecting the cultural property of disaster-afflicted areas. Set up by the Agency of Cultural Affairs soon after the disaster, damaged cultural property was either conserved within the afflicted areas or remnants were taken elsewhere to be treated. For example, documents that had been exposed to salt water were retrieved, and the salt was painstakingly removed from each page. Not only has Japan developed advanced know-how in early warning systems technology, but we have now accumulated practical experience in the rescue of cultural property. I hope that we can develop systems that can also benefit the rest of East Asia. We have also commenced work on a digital archive project. In collaboration with other countries in East Asia, I hope that we'll be able to digitalize and preserve Asian nature, culture, and history on a wider scale. In today's symposium, I felt that in spite of the diversity in East Asia, there is also an underlying similarity in thought, way of life, and perspective of the world. So, as we rediscover and reconfirm each of these similarities, I strongly feel we should use culture and art as a bridge to create new bonds for those of us living in 21st century East Asia. I'd like to thank you all for being with us today and again express my gratitude to our panelists.
This program was made possible by the Agency for Cultural Affairs of Japan.
East Asia. The world is pinning its hopes on the revitalization of this region. Now the countries of East Asia are looking to the future, aiming to go beyond country and race and coexist in harmony.
This program is made possible by the Agency for Cultural Affairs of Japan.
The East Asia Kyosei Forum, held in Tokyo, brought together experts from across the region. The goal was to identify principles by which East Asian countries may coexist in harmony. Perceptions and challenges was the theme for this symposium. So what does the Japanese word Kyosei actually mean? Mr. Tamotsu Aoki, a former Commissioner for Cultural Affairs, was the forum's general chairman and moderator. In his opening speech, he explained the meaning of Kyosei and gave a definition of East Asia.
Let me explain the importance of the word Kyosei. It's the concept of people from different backgrounds living together harmoniously in a particular area or place, working together for progress and coexisting in peace and prosperity. For this reason, we've chosen Kyosei as our keyword. I believe that people must wonder and question what countries make up the region of East Asia. There are many ways of dividing the different regions, and these can change with the times. East Asia here is the region including Japan, China, and Korea, plus the 10 countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, otherwise known as ASEAN.
Both economically and politically, the eyes of the world are now on East Asia. The countries shown here make up the region, the main focus of this forum. Panelists from various East Asian countries and also Europe have gathered to discuss the perceptions and challenges for achieving Kyosei in East Asia. Cultural exchange will play an essential role in the coexistence of countries within East Asia. This issue was put forward to open the discussion. Firstly, we will hear from Park Chol-hee, a professor at a postgraduate school in Seoul.
The problem the countries of East Asia are facing is that it is difficult for them to survive alone as individual nations. Even China is struggling to remain dynamic without overseas support, investment, and the provision of technology. It seems that economic interdependence in East Asia is on the increase. Cultural exchange is advancing and nations are starting to mutually appreciate their different cultures. Recently, Japanese music, animation, and manga, and also Korean pop music and drama are very popular throughout East Asia. I am sure that many of you present in the audience today have watched Korean dramas and are aware that their popularity and that of music too is not only limited to Japan, but is also prevalent in Taiwan and Singapore. This demonstrates that each country is ready to accept the culture of other nations. With continual cultural exchange, we will see increased cooperation and harmony between nations. The promotion of cultural exchange is a necessary step in going beyond national and racial barriers. In fact, it is the simplest way. Culture itself transcends national borders and is easy to accept. Knowing another culture is a good way for us to understand people from different backgrounds. When culture is shared on a grassroots level, the future of East Asia can move towards the goal of Kyosei.
동아시아의 미래는 점점 공생을 향해 나갈 거라고 생각합니다. 여기서는
However, we must also be cautious.
세계 문화들이 점점 획일화되어 가고
With the advance of globalization comes the danger of uniformity in world culture.
좀 어느 도시에 가도
Wherever you
비슷해지는
travel in the
전통
world,
문화를 잘
you can find a
배우고
Starbucks
상대방의
or a McDonald's.
그 다양성을
Total
잘
uniformity is undesirable.
그 즐길지라는 눈을 키우는
Each
것이
country must strive to
서로에
maintain
대한
its own
사회에 대한
traditional
존중,
culture at the same
그
time
국가에
as
대한
welcoming the
존중으로
cultures of other
이어진다고
countries.
생각합니다. 마지막으로 이 모든 것을 가능하기
In this
위해서는
way, mutual respect
역시
between
우리가
societies and
살고 있는
countries can be
자유주의적인
achieved.
국제 질서, 영어로
In
얘기하면
order to
liberal
realize the
international
exchange of
order를
culture in the East
잘
Asia
지켜나가는
region, we need to
중요하다고
construct a
생각합니다.
liberal
Free
international
trade,
order.
free communication,
We need to
free
realize free
navigation.
trade, free
이런 것이
communication, and
있을
free
때
navigation.
우리는 개방된 세계를
I believe
만들 수
that building a
있고 서로가
liberated
의존하는
East
세계를
Asian
점점
society in which
늘려가서
people and cultures can
공생을
travel
하는 길로
freely
갈 수 있을
is
거라고
vital to
생각합니다.
the realization of Kyosei in Asia.
여기서 마치겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Professor Yoshiko Ashiwa, who teaches social sciences at a Japanese university, speaks not only about cultural exchange, but also about the importance of how the community shapes culture.
まず文化という次元において考えます
First of
と
all, from a cultural perspective, as there are no clear divisions in East Asia, we cannot categorize culture country by country. For example, we cannot refer to something as a typically ASEAN culture, or ASEAN plus 3 culture, or ASEAN plus 5 culture. As cultural diversity also exists within each particular country, we should rather think of communities as units that support culture, and concentrate on the importance of spreading culture through community exchange. There is a certain flexibility, strength, and value in culture which doesn't exist in the fields of politics and economics. Social disparity, educational environmental concerns, conflict between traditional values and new values, changes in the family unit. When confronted with such major issues, the people of Asia are questioning and searching for what is really important in life and what the joys and worries of living together truly are. They are struggling to find their vision of a new society. However, with major social disasters such as war and dissent, people and society itself fall into a state of apathy. It becomes impossible to think, impossible to feel. Not only does indifference towards others occur, but also indifference towards oneself. Even the will to live is lost. It is culture that has the power to prevent a state of apathy and the power to diffuse it. In turn, community plays a major part in supporting culture. In other words, it's a mutually supportive relationship. You are reliant on other people are reliant on you. You support and are supported. Everything is connected. I believe the true value of culture is that it stimulates and builds.
It is difficult to sum up East Asia in one word because radically disparate racial and cultural diversity exists side by side in the region. Lee Shor Lin from Singapore speaks about the importance of dealing with this diversity.
In, I suppose, vast countries like Japan, like China, like Korea, with a more or less monolithic culture, the differences of the others are always accentuated by political boundaries, by the different languages they speak, and by the strange cultures that you see. But I would like to invite you to exercise the power of imagination and imagine that for us in Singapore, it is an example of how this distance is shortened and the differences intensified. The idea of Kyosei is not just an idea, it's a reality, and it is right at our doorstep. Not that Singapore is most successful in practicing and realizing Kyosei, because a few years ago, we have grown from a 3 million population to 5.2. 1/3 of this 5.2
million population is foreign. Less than 40% of this population was born in Singapore. So the other 60% of the people, citizens, were born outside Singapore. I think the most effective way to understand and to appreciate the differences is by way of voluntary participation in the activities, in ceremonies, in celebration, and in grief of the others. It is always good to learn new languages because languages only enhance sympathy and affection towards others, and for new languages adopted, new communications channels are opened. One must always have the readiness to give up a bit of yourself, a part of yourself, in order to embrace the diversity and the differences towards integration.
The diverse countries of East Asia. When considering the concept of Kyosei, mutual understanding is essential. Li Vi, director of the Institute of Japanese Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, focuses on this. The East Asia community must search for a common culture. What springs to mind directly, for example, is the use of Chinese characters and Confucianism. Undoubtedly, in East Asian culture, a lot of weight is placed on both of these elements. However, when one thinks of coexistence between the countries of East Asia, Chinese characters and Confucianism cannot be regarded as the common culture of this region. That is because some cultures within this region are completely different. Respect must be paid to all the diverse cultures within East Asia. We can't become biased towards cultures that use Chinese characters and Confucianism. This would reduce the mutual understanding between our national cultures and regional characteristics. The culture of one country cannot be used to represent all the other cultures. Even though both the Japanese and Chinese languages incorporate the use of Chinese characters, the grammar and way of thinking are completely different. The way in which Chinese characters are written and their meanings vary in both languages. The soul of the language is different. That is why it is difficult to learn and understand about another country. That is why we must make the effort to mutually understand each other's cultures. We must also strive to understand the characteristics of the cultures of each nation within the region of East Asia. Everything is of the utmost importance. We must be aware that every country has its own particular culture, and we must respect that. Another panelist is Mr. Hans-Georg Zeffner, member of the board of the Institute for Advanced Study in the Humanities in Essen. The European Union is a forerunner when it comes to coexistence among different countries. How does Europe regard the problems East Asia is facing in its aim for Kyosei?
With regards to Kyosei in East Asia, we agreed that the roles of culture and mutual understanding are the most important factors. In the case of the EU, how is the role of culture regarded in the unity, integration, and harmony between member countries?
That's a very interesting and deep question, because Europe was divided into parts of the same religion, Protestant and Catholic religion, over centuries. And this meant also different cultures. Take music, painting, architecture. But in the background, there was always an idea of being one European sphere of arts. Nevertheless, because the artists from the north, who were Protestant, went to the south to learn. Musicians, painters, architects, everybody did so. So there was some sort of diversity on the one hand, but the diversity was the background for being one area of Europe. And my feeling is that the East Asian countries, and thank you very much, my colleague from Singapore, that this is a very important part of exchange, maybe at the moment the most important. On the other hand, what Europe now makes in a way unique are the open borders. No customs, no control inside of Europe. Outside, that's different. But that means that you all of a sudden have a feeling to be a European. One very interesting test is send students from Europe to elsewhere. French, Italian, Spanish, German, Dutch. They go as French, German, Dutch, Spanish, and they come back with the feeling we are Europeans. We are different. As soon as East Asia has the same experience, that people doesn't say, I come back to Indonesia, I'm Indonesian, but I'm part of East Asia. That would be a very interesting test. And another test could be to find a, let's say, common language of translating the different arts of the East Asian sphere. Most of us are just watching it, and we are enjoying it. But my doubt is that also people from East Asia don't really understand it. And this is easier in Europe because of this long-lasting exchange, and it's a small area, Europe. Look at the landscape, the map, so it's just this compared to China, for example. So my last sentence would be to East Asia. In the background, there's a high diversity of everyday habits. A friend of mine, Tong Chi Kyong from Singapore, did a study on what is really making the difference between people. For example, food and everyday customs. Not fashion, not music, not pop music, not architecture, but go inside of the houses and watch what is going on there, how people behave there, and then you have all of a sudden a lot of differences.
Thank you very much. I realize that when the European Union was formed, economic unification was of course the initial step. However, at present, the Union is progressing towards political unity with the formation of the European Parliament in Strasbourg, where they are attempting to create a constitution. At the same time, from the perspective of an outsider, respect for the diversity of cultures and a general understanding of culture has also been shown. For example, one system that Japan has used as a model is the Erasmus program, which supports the exchange of students between countries within the European Union. European Capital of Culture system, which was established in 1986, wherein the European Union selects a suitable city every year to hold a series of cultural events, so that in one go, the culture regenerates that particular city, and through the movement to promote it as a global tourist spot, the chance for new cultural creativity is brought about, leading to growth not just in Europe, but on a worldwide scale as well. Let's hear from our panelists once more. Professor Park.
There are a few points that I would like to raise. Regarding the role of culture, I was highly impressed by what Professor Ashiwa said. She stressed that culture is supported by the community, and when we examine various art forms and traditional performing arts, we can see clearly that culture is formed from a base in the community and spreads from there. It is almost impossible to separate community from culture. However, when working towards Kyosei, or harmonious coexistence in East Asia, cultural exchange does not necessarily have to start from a community. In other words, there are some cases in which no community exists, when a traditional art is very old, for example, or, on the other hand, in the case of recent cultural activities on the internet. In these cases, when the focus is on the community, the role of culture in Kyosei is limited. I would go as far as to say that it is important for new communities and new possibilities to be forged through cultural activities. For example, thanks to a particular Korean drama, the charisma of one of the actors changed the thinking of the Japanese people and opened their hearts. Even though a community does not exist between Japan and Korea, the presence of just one actor can play a vital role. Therefore, I think we have to rethink the role of culture. There was also mention of the Erasmus program. Although few people have yet to hear of it, the Campus Asia program between Japan, China, and Korea will kick in from next spring onwards. Seoul University will also participate. Once every year, 10 students from Japan, 10 students from Seoul University, and 10 students from Beijing University will study one semester at each campus. The exchange of students studying abroad is a new endeavor. In 10 years' time, this will prove to be a program that nurtures the leaders of Kyosei in East Asia.
Thank you very much. Can I ask for a final comment from the other panelists on the subject of Kyosei, or harmonious coexistence?
Thank you. I think this reinforces the idea that the art and artistic practices transcend all boundaries and all languages. As an art administrator, I often have to participate in ASEAN workshops. But when you put art administrators together in a room, the discussion is very boring. But when you put the artists and the craftsmen together, they almost always do not need the language translation. They get together and they do their own thing and they create beautiful music and they make great performances and they make great art. So I think art is indeed a good method to promote understanding and appreciation of each other, and I think that will be one of the most important pillars of Kyosei.
How about you, Professor Lee?
I think that through forums such as this, we will find a common goal. There are so many things, so many issues that need to be solved. We should start with what is easiest and more approachable. It is fairly easy to organize cultural exchange. In any case, it is vital that we move towards Kyosei, or harmonious coexistence. For example, a movie starring a Japanese actor who is popular with the Chinese is widely shown in China. Movies and TV dramas depicting Japanese culture and tradition are also popular in China. This is because China and Japan share the commonality of being Asian. I think that repeating the process of cultural exchange will strengthen the basis of Kyosei in East Asia. Such activities should continue in the future.
Thank you very much. Professor Lee has been saying for many years that if suitably subtitled films reflecting Japanese customs and the delicate sensibilities of the Japanese people are shown in China, then the Chinese will regard the Japanese in a more endearing light. Also, the Chinese would feel an affinity for the landscape of Japan if it were introduced more. Thank you very much. Professor Ashiwa.
What I have to say ties in with Professor Lee. The animated films of director Hayao Miyazaki have had a huge impact on many people. My students come from all across Asia, and they become very excited when they talk about which of the Ghibli films they have seen. Not only are these films accomplished, but they also put across very important messages, such as issues dealing with nature, violence, or ecology, the end of civilization, or how a new generation is born. Although fantasy is an imaginary genre, the themes running through the film say a lot about where we are now and where we are going in the near future. These are the problems that the younger generation in Asia and East Asia are facing. The movies provide a common base for connecting young people who are thinking about the future. These films depict an opportunity for Asia as a whole, or the new modern Asia, to consider where it's going. I think it's wonderful that the knock-on effect of art and culture is to create a common awareness of problems among the youth of Asia. It also gives me a lot of hope for the future of Japan as a trendsetter of culture.
Professor Zeffner, would you like to comment?
I agree to everything my colleague said already. I have only one short remark. I was very impressed, and it was impressing again for me to experience the admirable support Asian countries gave each other in the times of disasters. But speaking in terms of social sciences and political sciences, it seems to be necessary to have institutions to make out of eventual supports long-lasting solidarity. Long-lasting solidarity needs institutions, needs an ongoing exchange organized within cultures, politics, academia, and without institutions, maybe everything can just go down very quickly. That's why I hope for Europe, because it now has some institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I gauge from our panelists today is that East Asia is a region with some wonderful qualities, some of them universal, some of them not, and the region is also plagued with major problems. However, there is no doubt that culture has a very big part to play, and through cultural exchange, a common awareness can be created throughout East Asia. All of the panelists pointed out that it is important to cultivate a sense of coexistence, a sense of Kyosei, and whether each country, including Japan, can carry these things out will be a goal for the future.
Globalization is accelerating. Now more than ever, we need to create regions that go beyond country and race. For this purpose, cultural exchange and harmonious coexistence is vital. As the world changes, East Asia must change with it.
This program was made possible by the Agency for Cultural Affairs of Japan.